Welcome to Heroes and Droids, your guide to movies and TV shows about superheroes, sci-fi, Disney, and action. From Marvel to DC, from Star Wars to Star Trek, from James Bond to the Fast and Furious, we will review the theatrical films and streaming delights you care about most. And does that apply to anything more than this film for many people out there on the internet? This week we are reviewing Zack Snyder's Justice League, which has a backstory which would take hours alone to discuss.
It'd probably take longer than the movie itself.
Can anything take longer than this movie? All right, this is a 4-hour movie that has finally made its way to HBOMax. A strong history. This is the Snyder Cut, if you will. Well, we'll get into all that, but that's what we're reviewing tonight. Joining me, I am Doc Rotten, and joining me tonight is Chris Slattery. He is called the Slattman. Slattman, how you doing, sir?
Doing pretty good. I gotta show off my TIE fighter.
I like the sound effect that came with it. Yeah, that's awesome.
I have an X-wing back there too.
Are those Legos?
Yes.
Okay, there you go. And you also have the Mickey Minnie Mouse,
and a little teeny tiny Millennium Falcon with Han.
All right, this has so much to do with Justice League, so that's awesome.
I gotta start off with positives.
Oh wow! Oh, okay, bury the lead. All right. Also joining us is a filmmaker, Christopher G. Moore. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. Hold on. I think I heard a hot dog vendor explode. Oh, sorry. I had dinner.
That happened way too fast.
That would have been like an hour.
Yeah, it was at least 5 minutes too short.
Oh my God. All right, yes, we're talking about the Snyder Cut. All right, let's dive into it. What we're going to do, somewhere in here, I have, what's this all about. I think you all know, but my mouse is not cooperating. Here we go. Zack Snyder's Justice League is what they're calling it.
Now in black and white.
Stop. March 18th, it came out after what? 5 years? 5 years? 4 years?
I think it's 4 or 5.
I don't know. A long ass time. Directed by, of course, Zack Snyder. Written by Chris Terrio. And this is we don't need to say anything else. It's basically the introduction of the Justice League and dealing with the death of Superman and the coming of all kinds of weirdness, lights from the sky, and all kinds of goodness. An incredible cast of actors portraying various superheroes and villains and whatnot. All that nonsense. The first movie came out
was poo-poo.
And it was panned by critics and fans alike, and maybe everybody on this panel. Josh Whedon.
I've never seen it.
Well, he panned it without even seeing it. See there? No, he'd never panned it, but he would. The film had to be finished by Josh Whedon under extraordinary circumstances. Unfortunately for Zack Snyder, he lost his daughter to suicide, which was very sad and very tragic for everybody involved, and our condolences to him and his family. But he resulted in him leaving the project prematurely, and they had to hire somebody to come in, even though he had done a lot of work for it. There was a Snyder Cut, if you will. Was it complete? Maybe not as much as we know. I don't know. But when Josh Whedon came in, they basically retooled it, recut it, and refilmed a lot of the scenes. And what we have now is, after a lot of fan base getting out there and championing the Snyder Cut, along with people involved with the film as well, Jason Momoa probably most notably, having seen it, was saying that yes, it is actually really good. And well, now here we are, the spring of 2021, and we get to see it. And in all its 4-hour glory, with a few extra scenes.
A few.
Well, to be fair, this is more of a Zack Snyder extended cut.
It is more
Because he had a
yeah.
cut that he showed to people, but it didn't have all the $70 million additional scenes added to it. So to be fair, it's not really the Zack Snyder cut. It's his extended cut, regardless of what people call it.
Sure.
It's his Blade Runner super ultra mega director's cut.
Yeah, well, which is why it gets Zack Snyder's Justice League, but the Snyder Cut is definitely responsible for this happening. My understanding is that the new shoots are all in the epilogue, and all the other money is effects. Putting things together, and sometimes the effects look great, and there are some times where they just didn't really quite do it. I mean, there's a shot of Jesse Eisenberg in the water that looks really horrible, but at the same time,
made in the 90s.
I know. But you were going to say something, Chris?
I thought I saw a horse glide instead of gallop.
You saw it too. I was. It looked like a bad glitch in a video game.
Yeah, it's like it skipped a couple frames.
But okay, I understand what you guys are saying, and I acknowledge these, but none of these, in my opinion, are as offensive as the removing of the mustache in the intro of the Whedon version, because it was just so horrendous and so awful. I mean, to me, I didn't find, even though it was there and it was bad, there was also a lot of really good effects done that weren't in the original scenes that we saw. This movie is, not only the 20% that actually made into the original 2.5 hour movie that the Whedon version, but it also is, 4 hours long, nearly twice as long as the original film in and of itself. So there are tremendous amount of scenes in here. And I will start saying, because I know this is going to be an interesting conversation, because I love this movie. You guys have your various opinions, but you know what? I think we need to give our first impressions. Do we need to do that? Or do
let's
we just
get it out? Can
we
okay.
Considering it's a 5-year-old movie, can we do spoilers in the first impressions?
We're doing spoilers everywhere.
Okay.
From here on in. It's just So yeah, I mean,
it's the Heroes and Droids cut.
Come on, we're doing it.
Why aren't we in 4:3? We should be in 4:3 to make this the right.
There you go.
Maybe black and white for the next one.
We'll do black and white for the next one for some. All right, I'm going to start off here because the Snyder Cut wasn't really something that I personally was eager to be involved with or see or anything back in the day, but now that it's here and now that I've seen it, I greatly appreciate it. I really love this version of it. For me, this is far superior than the version that we got theatrically. Many of the characters get, the attention that they deserved, or they don't get neutered like they did. Seeing this now, you can see how neutered many of the plot and characters is in the original film, from Cyborg, from Cyborg to Lois Lane, to be specific. Many other elements. The Joe Morgan's character, it just gets everything that's related to him gets neutered. It's kind of egregious what they did, and the elements that were added in there, even though some of the scenes were actually, I think I may have listed as my favorite, really don't belong in this film. So I love most everything about this film. The aspect ratio was one thing that really turned me off when I first started this up, because I thought something was wrong, to be honest with you. And it took me a while to realize that I was looking around like, where can I change the ratio? This is not what I want. What I do? And I actually turned it off after I got into, once the the opening credits finished. I was like, turn this off. I got to go figure out what's going on, until I really, Vanessa, who's usually on the show, said you get over it and you get used to it after a while, and that's exactly what happened to me. After a while, I got used to it, and I didn't even notice it was there. It was that format. But I'm not a fan of that particular choice. Is it over long? 4 hours is too long for most everything, and this, yes. But at the same time, I really enjoy what it is. I think there's a better way to present this particular film. I think when we had heard it was going to be 4 hours. I don't think it or 4 episodes of a show. I think it with the way they have the title cards, I think it would be better as a 6 or 7 episodes. But man, the film, the characters have motivation. This is Bruce Wayne's movie, not Batman's. This is Bruce Wayne's movie, and I really love Ben Affleck as Bruce Wayne, my favorite Bruce Wayne. I love the news segments. I know a lot of people are going to beat me over the head for that, but the ending nightmare sequence I really like. There's I prefer this, and I think it's one of his best, if not best, films. But I'm a fan of his stuff. I like most of his films. One film, I mean, there's a couple films that I didn't like. One, and I kind of have an issues with Batman versus Superman, but at the same time, there's a lot of that movie that I really love. It's just I don't love all of that movie. It kind of started what the DC had a problem with the ending, right? Kind of wrapping up a film, and the original Justice League also had that problem. And this one actually, in my opinion, corrects that. Anyway, I'm babbling on. I'm thumbs up about this. I really love it, and I'm glad it's a thing. I'm glad we're seeing it. I do not want to see a black and white. I do not want to invest 4 more hours in this thing. Let's be done. But it is what it is. There are a lot of people that will. But for me, it's a success. Thumbs up. Slattman, you're up next. What was your first impression of Zack Snyder's Justice League?
Okay, so first things first. I can openly admit this is better than the original theatrical release. Don't hear what I'm not about to say. It is still better. Like, it is still better than what we got in the theaters in 2017. Let's start with the thing. Let me start with some of the things that I did actually really enjoy in this. I enjoyed, after we get all 6 of our heroes together on screen, finally, after 2.5 hours, maybe even longer, that's when it really picked up for me, and it became like Justice League, you know? It became a movie worth watching. It became something that was enjoyable. And the chemistry between these actors works. They play off of each other very well. I enjoyed some of the additional characters that we got. I loved I want to call him J. Jonah Jameson, but that's not right because he's
he'll never not be J.K. Simmons.
Yeah.
Will never not be J.K.
I like
Gordon.
I liked J.K. Simmons in this. I liked the addition of everything to do with Cyborg's story arc, giving him a story arc.
Yes.
I liked Batman, or Bruce Wayne, or, you know, the conglomeration of both of them in this movie. I liked Alfred. I like the way that Alfred interacts with all of the heroes.
Yes. Including Superman, which was a great scene.
Yeah, Jeremy Irons might be my favorite part of this movie, and it's sad that he's probably not ever coming back as Alfred. I appreciate the art direction that this movie took, because I think the oversaturation of colors from the original release was not appealing. And I think by toning it down, they really did a good job of they made a good job of making it look better. It doesn't look as fake. And the reason that the oversaturation of colors works in Marvel is because they've designed a lot of their costumes, a lot of their production to work with that. A lot of their special effects are meant to work with that. It didn't really work with the Justice League. Like I think that the original like ending battle had like a red hue to it the entire time, and it just looked ugly the whole time. And this time it looks like it's happening just at night, just with alien technology. It's great. That part's great. I also really like Lois Lane in this. I think they did a good job with her character. I think that her presence in this movie is much better than it was in the original. Yeah, there are things to like about this, but unfortunately there are a lot of things that I don't like about it, and I'm very mixed on it, and I don't know. I have a really hard time recommending it, even though I objectively know it is better than the original theatrical release we get. I was incredibly bored for about an hour and a half to 2 hours into the movie, until we start to get our characters together, and we start the actual conflict with the Justice League and Steppenwolf, like actually their conflict, and not just the threat of the conflict, or the couple battles that happened beforehand with Steppenwolf and the Amazonians and the Atlanteans, and just jump skipping around the world to as Bruce Wayne flies to meet people. I felt that it was very slow. I felt that there were a lot of scenes that dragged on way too long, whether that was from slow-mo artistic choice to play an entire cover of a song as Flash pushes a hot dog out of the way and then saves and then saves a future love interest, or just like some of the fight scenes I felt like dragged on way too long because of the slow motion, because of the obsession with making it like because of Zack Snyder. Like, and I think a lot of my problems with this movie comes down to the fact that I'm not a huge Zack Snyder fan. I don't like his style for action that much. I think 300 is the only movie of his that I have really enjoyed. And that's probably because I think that's like a 90-minute movie as opposed to 2+ hours. So he couldn't use the slow motion all the time. And I don't really like that. I also haven't seen 300 since I was in middle school, I think.
Oh,
so I think I might think of it differently now. But
it was an hour and 57 minutes. But
that's
yeah,
I have
internet in my pocket.
And I have a lot of issues with some of the choices that they made with the story. And we can get into this more after Christopher G. Moore gives his first impression, because I know first impressions aren't supposed to be like 10 minutes long per person. So sorry for taking so long, but I just yeah, oh man, I don't even know how to follow that up. Yeah, I do have a lot of issues though with some of the story decisions that were made, and I think it's more of a head scratcher as to why would they even do that, or why is this scene even here, or why is this needed, or like than anything. So I'm excited to bring this.
to back every single one of those decisions.
Oh, there is no way you can back one of them up. There is absolutely no way.
Everything this side of the Oscar Mayer wiener. But okay, let's find out what Christopher G. Moore thought. Christopher G. Moore, what was your first impression of Zack Snyder's Justice League?
Well, I will say this is Zack Snyder's best DC film.
Even better than Man of Steel?
I didn't like Man of Steel.
Okay.
You mean Let's Punch Zod for half the movie?
I mean, I like Henry Cavill as Superman, but I didn't like Man of Steel. And I definitely didn't like Batman versus Superman. Batman versus Superman is the main reason I didn't see the Justice League when it came out. I was so mad about that because I just felt like it was a waste. And the thing is, even though I love a lot of Marvel properties like Spider-Man and other things, Batman's like actually my favorite comic book character. And so to me, it's kind of made me kind of sad to see what Snyder's kind of done. I mean, I feel like the Batman character is probably, I like him more in this one than I have in the previous, but I'm not a big fan of Ben Affleck as Batman. Of course, I'm more old school. I like Michael Keaton. It's probably my favorite Batman. But yeah, I think the thing about this is like going into it, I was like, oh God, I've got to program my whole day around this 4-hour movie, which I don't really consider it a movie because that's the reason he has chapters, because he realizes it's a long slog of a film. But it wasn't one of those things where I was kind of bored. Although I did see a TikTok that basically what I did, where this woman, it's like, oh, is this another slow motion scene? Oh, let me go make dinner. Okay, it's over now. I've already finished dinner. Oh, is it slow motion scene again? Okay, let me go pee. Okay, and she comes back. Oh, it's still going on. I mean, I felt like that was like the whole movie, to where, to me, it's like you do certain things as big moments in the film, and when it happens so much, it becomes kind of monotonous to where it loses the specialness of it. And as much as people want to throw the whole epic thing on it, to me, that's just a lazy.
No,
it's just a term people try to make up for a filmmaker's laziness. Lord of the Rings, that's epic. And even some people feel like that's a slog. I mean, Kevin Smith always makes a joke that it's just people walking throughout 3 films.
Longest walks ever.
But I will say that, like, there's certain elements of this. I mean, it's like you talk about like, oh, every part of this is meant to be. Then why do we get like 20 minutes of like Wonder Woman learning how to make tea from Alfred? What is the point behind that?
I'll tell you the point about that if you want to hear it. It's the relationship. It's Alfred's scene. It's not Wonder Woman's scene. It's Alfred's scene because he's so controlling. But anyway, that's okay.
Yeah, it's a man telling a woman how to make tea. That's really, really great for somebody who's the strong woman in the movie. Yeah, let's mansplain how to make tea.
Is that what it is? He's mansplaining?
He's mansplaining. Alfred is mansplaining her how to make tea.
But, okay. Let's be fair. That is his role in this particular.
That's fine, but it's not. It doesn't. If you take that scene out, oh my God, the story stays intact.
Well, that's
There's
true.
so many things. This film, it's this kind of reminds me of Jack Nixon. This town needs an enema. This film needs an editor, and that's what this needs. It needed to be edited down. I think, let me just say this much. I'm glad that Zack Snyder got his version, although I don't feel like this is not his initial version. And this is like, hey, you give me money and I can do whatever I want, and you give me 70 million. Okay, I'm going to make the version that I want, and I'm doing it, and I don't have to worry about length. But then, like, I'm going to make this my vision by putting it in the 4:3 IMAX ratio, which is like, oh, great, you're making it for a streaming service. That's stupidity. I know that, and I've had filmmakers come on my page and like, oh, it was his vision. This is an IMAX format, which is a 1.133. shut up. You're making it for a TV. This is not, we don't have IMAX theaters in our living room. Okay. So for that to be your vision, why is your vision not for the format you're primarily making it for, which is HBO? Only reason HBO Max gave them money is so that people would come on their service and watch it. So to me, you're pissing on your version. That's like me making a 16.9 movie and put it on Quibi. It doesn't work. So let me just get over the filmmaker part of it. But yeah, I feel like the scenes go on too long. You know, like the hot dog scene. Come on. I mean, and like you have him meet the Iris character, and then we never see her again. There's no resolution. But then we get all these extraneous scenes with all these other characters that don't really matter. Now, for me, once all those characters come together as a Justice League, I love the hell out of it. I like some of the action scenes, and as you know, as much as I haven't seen the Joss Whedon version, which, by the way, all these people filming themselves throwing their copy in the trash. Why did you buy it in the beginning if you hated it? You're an idiot. So I'm going to get a lot of hate on my.
You are going to that might be pushed too far.
That's fine. No, that's fine. It's a joke. I'm just joking. I mean, we all like what we like. But anyway, I forgot what I was getting to. But anyway, I've seen some of the comparison stuff, and I saw like some of the ending stuff that Joss Whedon did, which does not work. Mm-hmm. I love how each of them does their own part for this to fulfill this mission against Steppenwolf. I love that aspect of it. Mm-hmm. And I love some of the action scenes, you know, whether it's them in the underground tunnel, even though I have issues with some of the glitchy effects in the opening scene, some of the stuff involving Themyscira or whatever the Wonder Woman's island, whatever that island is, kind of works. Although I feel like half of the movie is just people staring at dangerous things and not moving and not running away from it right away. You know, I mean, it kind of annoyed me after a while. It's like, oh, I just watched these people sink into the ocean. Let me wait here so that the people can fly out and come after us again. I mean, things like that. I actually yelled at the screen a few times. So yeah, there's stuff I didn't like about it. I feel like it's a bloated mess. You know, it was like this perfect corpse, but then it goes in the water and swells up, and then it explodes all the bloody mess all over you. And you're like, okay, what happened here?
That's the strangest analogy you've ever
I know
done.
it's a weird. It doesn't make.
You can tell that you're a horror director right now.
Yeah, that's me hard. But I will say, I did enjoy film. I did enjoy parts. There's parts that actually made me cheer. Okay, I love the whole end scene where they're fighting at Steppenwolf, and especially the moment with Flash. I love that moment. You know, and there was like one moment that made me cry that involved Superman. So there's parts of it that brought emotions for me that made me enjoy it, but but then I hated like all the epilogue stuff. I've never liked Lex Luthor. I've never liked his version of Lex Luthor. Ugh. I just want to just fall off his boat into the ocean and I'd be happy. And then I mean, as much as I think the Joker version is better than we had in the that other film,
the other film, Suicide Squad,
or you know, it still was not. I didn't need it. I think it was just. I think it's like it's one of those things where some people complain like, oh, we didn't see this or that, and then someone just throws every kind of thing that the Zack Snyder people will love or the fanboys may love, but it's really not needed. So I don't know. I think, you know, I appreciate him. I mean, he did, you know, Zack Snyder did this for free. He restored all this stuff for free. So as somebody who's a filmmaker, to be able to make what you consider your version, kudos, you know, and I think there's elements of this that work, but there's elements that don't work. And I think that's the kind of sad thing is, you know, but again, there's a lot of people that, I mean, it's got one of the it's in the top 10 ratings on IMDb right now because of all the Zack Snyder fans going on there and giving it 10s. It's not a 10 movie, but I think there's parts of it that work and parts of it that don't work. And I think a lot of it also has to do with Zack Snyder's style. You know, I think he just goes full tilt overboard. You know, like that whole thing with Aquaman walking into the water and the woman singing for like 2 hours.
You didn't like that?
And
I was like, come on. Oh yeah, it's like all I saw was this creepy woman who's like, you know, there's go, you know, that guy I made love to, and like, let me watch him walk off into the water.
It's not like she's smelling his panties.
That's basically if the roles had been reversed, that movie, that scene would get so much hate. It's very kind of creepy. There's actually a few creepies in. I mean, even the Flash scene where he's touching the woman, touching her hair. You know, I mean, like, oh, whoa. I mean, I don't know. Let me stop. I mean, I will say that I did enjoy parts of it. It wasn't one of those films where I turned it off. Like I've had friends on Facebook that are like, oh, hour 2, I got to turn it off for right now. You know, let me go watch another hour tomorrow. I watched it all in one sitting and I enjoyed it. But I guess I was just, you know, for 4 hours, I feel like it's not really, it's more of a mini series than a movie. And you could have whittled it down.
Oh, I think this would make a great miniseries.
I kind of wish it had, because I think people would have a better appreciation for it, because it's already divided into segments, like it's chapters.
I think I would have enjoyed it a lot more if it was a mini series, because then the overuse of slow-mo would have made more sense if it was like a big slow motion thing per episode.
Yeah, and the character beats would have made more sense, because you get those kind of character beats when you have more room to breathe. And that's what this film had. So when you talk about these moments where, you know, now that you said what you said, but the Wonder Woman and Alfred scene, you know, where you get an interaction between them, you know, those are moments where you get to breathe and do a little, you know, some character interactions. And I like the idea that people sat there and thought about things that were happening, because a lot of times, maybe not every time, but a lot of times it was telling me more than just saying it, which I always appreciate. Like when she's later on, Wonder Woman's got the arrow and she's looking, and there's a lot going on there that isn't being said, but being felt. And I think a lot of that was there. Sometimes it worked. Other times maybe it didn't. And it felt like, you know, people staring into the fridge, wondering what to eat. But, you know, but at the same time, the way that, all right. So what's interesting is we talked about this entire film and we haven't mentioned Darkseid yet, and Darkseid. And Darkseid,
that was one of the things I was going to bring up.
And Darkseid is a strong presence in this film without being in the film. I can see why they made the decision to not include him, especially given Josh Whedon was involved with this, because the similarities between that character and Thanos is
Dark Thanos, as they go.
Yeah, has always been an issue. I mean, they were both created, you know, around the same time, and you know, one is likely, you know, an ape of the other, but whatever. It's and when I'm watching it, I even now I can't help but think, oh yeah, I can still see it. But that's part of history, like it or not, and the characters that we get from DC and Marvel. I mean, it's not just that. There's all other characters too. You know, each one of them has a matching character of some sort.
I mean, Hawkeye and Green Arrow.
Exactly. Quicksilver and the Flash. And
I did like the redesign of Steppenwolf. I think that works a whole lot better. Although, did he have the big swinging chain penis in the first film?
Probably not. I don't know if I saw that in this one.
He had this long thing of chain, and the whole time I'm thinking they're trying to make this as phallic as possible.
To really earn that R rating.
I did not.
Although I will say, I did enjoy that this is an R-rated film, because there's a lot of people's heads getting bloodily smashed. And
I remember the flashback scene in particular. Like, there's multiple moments when like Amazonians and things were like, you would see them, like axes come down and like blood would just go and the scene with the hand, and then the scene that 100% reminded me of Infinity War with the axe and the dark side.
Oh yeah.
Like I literally thought Zack Snyder saw Infinity War and said, I can do that better.
Yeah, maybe. It is, yeah. The similarities are strong. I love the inclusion of this. I'm a fan of the Darkseid and all the other the gods. Oh my god, new gods, which at one time we were going to get a film, and I have no idea what happened to that. But to me,
they canceled it after how terribly Justice League did.
I wouldn't be surprised. But the I don't know. So I'm a big fan of that. I'm a big fan of all the character development. I really like Bruce Wayne in this movie. This is the Bruce Wayne. He's 20 years into being Batman. This is how Bruce Wayne would be 20 years into it. I really like this performance, and in that respect, this is my favorite Batman. I really like this Batman. I like the mature Batman, the aged Batman. I like him portrayed here better than some of the elements in the actual the theatrical Justice League. It really is. I felt. I mean, I know there's some people that don't get his motivation with Superman because he was literally trying to kill him in the other movie. But to me, it works. But I have a history with these characters, so some of that might be biasing my opinion on some of those connections, and I can connect dots where maybe not every film goer might be able to do. But at the same time, I really like his version of Wonder Woman quite a bit. The Wonder Woman scene where she's fighting is much stronger, a little bit more visceral, and she's a badass. Well, she's a badass all around. But the music and the scene is shot it just comes across better. Lois Lane was. You were making a comment about if the roles were reversed, and you were kind of hinting at some anti-feminism. But what happened to Lois Lane in the first one? She was relegated to not even a supporting character. She was Plan B, and that was really disappointing. And here she has so much more stakes in the movie, stakes in what's happening. She's the one that makes the decision to show up. It's not Batman's Plan B. There's an arc to her character. She's grieving, and there's there's much more to her, and it's a big element of the story, which this film needed, in my opinion. And then when you get to the supporting characters, each one gets their little beats, which I think is what feels like it's long, because we do spend a lot more time with these characters where we didn't, and which makes them getting together pushed back to the halfway mark. Instead of an hour into a 2-hour movie, it's 2 hours into a 4-hour movie. So,
I mean, I think she's integral to the story, but I don't, I think from what I understand, the changes that they've made from Joss Whedon's to this, it does make it much more reasonable why Superman would react differently, because he can also see the connection, because they point out that she's pregnant.
They hint. They don't say that she is. You don't see that it's what the results are, but yeah, the hints.
Well, but at the end, she has like a baby basket that she's carrying into the house. So it's more than hinted.
Okay, I didn't catch that.
Storytelling without being overly obvious. You actually gotta appreciate it.
Yeah. So I mean, but at the same time, it also falls into the category of like, oh, she's gonna be the impetus for Superman turning bad at some point. The whole girlfriend in the fridge bit that I do about storytelling.
Yeah, I did have issues with them spelling it out, like through Batman saying, "I had a dream," and it was like Lois is the key. Lois is the key. It's just like, yeah, we could have figured that out. You didn't need to say it out loud for the audience to get it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I mean, I guess also, the one thing people keep pointing out is just how Cyborg got the short end of the stick in the first film when Joss Whedon came on there, and there's that whole thing involved with him, his the actor's issues with Joss, and so I am kind of glad that they kind of expanded his part, and although you can expand anybody's part in a 4-hour film, but they expanded his story arc, and made him like one of the strongest elements of the Justice League because of that.
Mhm.
Although the guy who plays his father,
Joe Morgan.
he needs to stay away from. Well, he has a problem with messing with alien technology because he was also the guy that created Skynet.
Yeah, he was.
He has a problem with messing around with alien stuff, and it usually gets him in trouble.
That's funny. I didn't know where you were going with it. That's hilarious.
Well, it's like I was like, where have I seen this guy before? It's like, oh, he's the guy that found the Terminator's arm. And then what's her name went after him in Terminator 2. But yeah, I think that I'm kind of glad that they were able to give him a proper character arc, and it kind of makes me kind of sad that we didn't get the Cyborg movie, because I think he'd make a very interesting character. Although I feel that also Doom Patrol has done a pretty good job with spotlighting the Cyborg character as well. So yeah, I mean, there are good elements in this, and I think we, like you mentioned, we get to see the badass side of Wonder Woman much more. She's given a proper sort of like spotlight in regards to that. Although that one scene where she's battling the guy with the suitcase full of dynamite or whatever
at the very beginning,
she just stands there, and I'm like, she could have just bum rushed him instead of just letting him shoot around for like 20 minutes. But things like that just got me a little bit irritated. But I don't know. I did like the bat spider or whatever that thing is, the bat spider vehicle.
Yes.
So we get some really cool. We get a little bit of the Tumbler vehicle from the Dark Knight Batman a little bit. So yeah, there's things that really work, but I don't know. I enjoyed the parts where they all work together as a Justice League.
Yeah, I will give you that. I will give you that. That's where it really gets strong. I also like that they gave Steppenwolf a lot more motivation. I mean, he actually has motivation here, where he was just a way to get to point A to point B, from the bad guy point of view. And his demise, his defeat is much stronger here.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Yeah, and the implications of it, and how it, what the heroes end up having to say, by tossing him back into the portal, beheaded. Even spoilers. There's so much about this movie that's improved, and the things that they cut out. I know you guys are there's an argument to say that this version needs to be trimmed, but there's a good way to trim this and a bad way to trim this. And what they did for the theatrical version is an example of the bad way. You cut out the beats and the things that matter, the heart of it, and you get this hollow shell, this pretend thing that wants to be a superhero film and isn't. This one has that. But yeah, as a Bloated, there's, it's a Zack Snyder film, so it has a lot of long cuts and a lot of, things. But to me, it is epic, and I think it's epic because I don't think there's any laziness to this. To me, it's grandiose in its story. It's operatic. It's just presenting it like it's a Iliad or Odyssey or something. It's meant to, that's how he sees superheroes, as these, our version of the, those old tales. So, the modern version of those old tales. So it feels like that. It feels like that's the core of his vision, is presenting it in that, huge scale, and I think he succeeded.
Well, I think there's ways of doing it. To me, it's like, throughout your day, you have those little, here I'm going with a food analogy again. You have those delicious sort of like, donut here or there instead of just donuts constantly.
Mhm.
And I think that's the problem. I think Zack Snyder has he overdoes it, and I think if he sort of saves certain moments and hits you at those right times instead of just keep using it over and over and over and just like, let me just use every form of slow motion technique known to mankind. If you took all the slow motions out of this film, the film would be like 15 minutes long. No, I'm just kidding. Literally you could have cut down some of the things, because I think
I can think of probably 5 points in which the slow motion, if he had kept it in those 5 points and then cut the rest of them or reduced them to, instead of like snail space, just go at slowly walking instead of the brisk jog that the battles tends to be. It would have been so much more effective. Like the very end when they're demolishing Steppenwolf and Wonder Woman's going to cut off the head, that would have been a good one. The scene with the Flash, those big heavy moments, I feel like would have been so much more impressive and it would have worked better.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see how much of this style that he's ever since 300 he's kind of grown at and become known at. It is a Snyder way of cutting things. I wonder how much of it will make it into Army of the Dead when it comes out.
Well, and I'm actually kind of intrigued because I want to see him do his own thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me, we will never know that initial version that he was going to make. We had that when he had to stop it, and with the sad thing involving his daughter, which is regardless of what, regardless of what you think, it's kind of sad when you see her name come up. Because it's really that they made this as sort of like, because they made it during the process when that happened. This is sort of like their love letter to their daughter, and that's very sweet. But I really would have. I wish I was Flash and go back in time and make sure that certain things didn't happen to where he could have finished that film, because I would love to see what that film would have been, because I don't think it would have been this 4-hour extravagant thing. And also, as much as people give Joss Whedon crap, which I think a lot of people, they're just piling on because of the stuff that's come out about him, but it's almost like when you go look at AI, you have like 2 different directors sort of like battling with each other and adding their own stuff, and it's not really one thing. It's just more like throwing 2 things together that don't really work together, so I think he came in, and I think I've heard that maybe Warner Brothers is probably the reason that it turned out the way it did. They used that situation as a reason to like, hey, well, we'll just have him finish it off because we really don't like what Zack Snyder is doing with this.
There was a lot of push. I mean, you got to look back. I mean, you can get in there can be books and books and books.
Yeah, there's so much stuff.
There was so much backlash about Batman versus Superman.
It's somebody else coming in and trying and putting their own like thing on it and having to work with other stuff that they probably wouldn't have done. And it doesn't work, and then we have him coming in and it's like, okay, we'll give you $70 million, tell your own story. This is not canon, or this will be complete your trilogy of movies. So go at it, have fun. And so he got to do his thing and go out on his own terms, I guess it could change, but I've seen interviews where people at Warner Brothers say, this is his trilogy. And they asked about the restore the Zack Snyder universe, and it's like, no. So,
well, I mean, it's not gone. I mean, we're still going to get Wonder Woman movies. We're still going to get Aquaman movies and Flash movies, but
it's not the Zack Snyder version of it,
Yeah, he's come out and said that he doesn't want to continue the story that he started with Justice League. Like wherever they go with Darkseid or wherever they go with any, like apparently the solo Batman movie was supposed to take place mostly in that alternate timeline that they had in the epilogue. And that's never going to happen. He has no intention to go and do that. They've basically already said they're never bringing back that version of that character. So
I do feel sad though, because I would like to see more Ben Affleck as Batman.
Well, we'll
And
see him
I
in
do-
Flash, though.
Yeah, and I want to see more Henry, Cavill as Superman. He is my favorite Superman. I do like his Superman.
He's
I don't
never
think
really had a chance to be super.
He hasn't had he hasn't had the chance to be the Superman
And
I personally want to see, but I
that
like
is
his. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Visually, he's the Superman I like. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's one of the big things that I have an issue with this cut is as much as I didn't like their use of Superman in the original Justice League, from how they tamed the beast to him being cut, like literally like copy and pasted into certain scenes where it doesn't make sense. Like he doesn't really get a chance to be Superman. He gets maybe like 10 minutes of actual like Superman screen time in this entire film, and it feels like the importance of him is to deflect the axe at just the right time, and then to just beat the ever-living shit out of Steppenwolf, and that's it. Like he wasn't he was given this, he's considered this trump card, he's considered this all-important thing, but he feels very tacked on and feels very much like a MacGuffin,
I would argue against that, because I felt that his motivation to participate and get back into it, I thought was very strong.
So yes, his motivation is there, but in terms of like in terms of like him being Superman, like I don't know. I feel like I don't know. I wish he had been a part of it more.
I do too. It makes me sad we don't get the movie where they're the Justice League and there's they have to solve,
and he has to fly out into space
Right,
to
they
go do
to-
something.
Yeah, it's a little bit more of
Like I want I have gone on record in saying I don't like Superman as a character because he creates so many issues when writing stories, and you have to write him out in order to you have to effectively write him out because he is so powerful, and they're having a similar problem with Marvel and Captain Marvel right now.
Yep.
And I mean he's got every freaking power. There's a comic where he has magical basket weaving powers to weave baskets for because the ladies at the old home can't finish weaving the baskets for the troops. Like he literally has the ability to shoot rainbows from his fingertips.
Oh, I didn't know where you were going there for a hot second. I was going to say, whoa, he's not farting rainbows. All right, but that's comics. Okay, so let's all right, I don't want to cut you off, but we do need to wrap up, so keep that in mind.
But while he does have all of these crazy powers and he is overpowered, he is such an important part of the Justice League, and I feel like for him to be like the poster boy of the Justice League, I just felt like his presence was needed more for it to really feel like a Justice League movie.
It's hard to argue that. I felt like his presence was throughout the film, but not his physical presence, right? And I think that's what you're really saying here. And I would like to see him, a part. It would be nice that if he was part of the actual plan, right? He wasn't something that just showed up to saved the day.
Yeah, it wasn't just faith that he showed up at the right time. It's the fact that he was actually like they counted on him showing up. They were able to communicate with him. They went and talked to him when he was in the cornfields with Lois and told him what's going on.
Right.
As much as I like the scene with Alfred, I think that would have I don't know.
Well, you could have had that. He could have just shown up before. Yeah, he just need. Yeah, I would have liked that too. That's not what they wrote, but I would have liked that as well. Let's go ahead and wrap this up. We're going to end up being just a little over an hour after we give our final thoughts, but that's what it's time to do. We're going to give our final thoughts, our score 1 to 5, and our favorite scene. But before we do, if you're still listening, 1, congratulations to you, and 2, thank you. I hope you're enjoying this review and many others. We're if you didn't know, we're also covering the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which is playing on Disney Plus. We did WandaVision as well, and as well as both seasons of The Mandalorian. So they're out there for you to enjoy, and we hope you enjoy those. If you'd like to support us, it's easy to do and free. You just hit the subscribe button or share with a friend. Either way, it helps us tremendously. If you want to get a little more involved, hit the like button. Hit the bell to get reminded. Leave us some comments. I'd love to hear your comments. Really, really, really love. We've been getting some great comments, and thank you all for doing that. We also want to take a moment to thank our friends over at Patreon, our patrons who, without their participation, we wouldn't be able to do not only Heroes and Droids, but Horror News Radio, Decades of Horror, and the Gruesome Magazine podcast. Thank you all so very much. All right, let's do this. Slattman, you are up first, sir. Your final thoughts, your score, and your favorite scene. Keep in mind the time.
Okay. So I promised to keep my final thoughts short, but I had one more thing I wanted to ask you, Doc.
Okay.
How does Martha how does Martha turning into Martian Manhunter make that scene any better? Defend that scene. That is the one scene that I think you cannot defend, because the scene between Lois and Martha is negatively impacted so much by it turning out to be Martian Manhunter that did that instead of it actually being Martha, because it seems like he's manipulating Lois instead of anything like that, and it's just
okay. I am prepared to do that. I don't disagree with you that I personally think it would be better if it was just her, Martha, as well. But the character has a history with Lois Lane. He is in the previous movies. He's the one that goes and she gives the evidence to and takes off. He's in the movie, so he has a connection with her, and I saw it as him prodding her to get back, to help her with the grief, and this was the way to do it. Is it the right way to do it? Is the right thing to do? That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that that's what I saw, is that was his choice to do that, and that's why that was included. I will still side with you that emotionally it plays better if it was just her. Regardless, the dialogue we get with them in this movie, that aside, is far superior than the dialogue we get in the original one. It has much more weight to it, much more. It treats Martha with a lot more respect, and her position with a lot more respect, and the relationship with more respect. So that's about the best I can do. I hope that works.
It does, and I agree with you on it's still better. And that kind of ties in very well with my final thoughts. I don't like it for a lot of reasons. The biggest one being I don't really appreciate Zack Snyder's filmmaking style. I don't really like the slow motion. I don't like his way of using it to emphasize things that I don't really think are super important, and it kind of takes away from the important parts. But I can openly admit that it is better than the hot garbage that we got 5 years ago. There's a lot of things that they did that are better. And I just do want to praise that they came up with something that, if it had come out 5 years ago like this, even if it had been trimmed down to a 2 hour and 57-minute movie, and they had been managed to cut out about an hour of fluff and it become just like a really long movie instead of an epic, as you like to call it, Doc.
As
I
like
think
to call it.
I think this would have been good enough that we would have seen more films come out of the Snyderverse. I think this is what I think should have come out. Probably an hour too long, but I think 5 years ago, if this had been what had come out, yeah, it would have. We would be talking a very different DC right now, I think.
I agree with that.
I do really appreciate a lot of the additions they made. I appreciate the change in art direction, especially with the colors. I thought the original was overly saturated, popped too much, and this one just kind of hits the color just right. And I absolutely love the moment when Superman passes up the red, white, and blue, or the red and blue suit to put on the black and gray suit. And I think that's my favorite scene, is where he's walking down the hall and there's all the suits and he shows up in the one and it doesn't show you what it is, but then when he comes on screen the next and he's in the black and white suit, I think it's the black and gray suit. I really like the way that was shot. I do like the way that how they presented this, all the different eras, all the different suits, all the different everything about Superman, and it was his choice to go with the black one, and I like that. I really do.
Yeah,
and it's him coming back to being super, and I feel like Justice League needed that. My score, I'm gonna give it a 2.5.
2.5. That's fair.
A 2.5. I do think after about 2 hours in, it becomes significantly better and really enjoyable. But those first 2 hours are just a drag for me.
Okay. Yeah. It should be noted that in the comics, the black suit was actually kind of like a Bacta tank, if you will, for him. It was regenerating him, so there was a reason for it. They don't get into that here, and they don't need to, but I just want to point that out. All right, Christopher G. Moore, sir, your final thoughts, your score, favorite thing?
Well, also, Warner Brothers didn't want him to use the black suit.
No, of course not. Yeah,
so, but because he had control over his cut and with the $70 million, he was able to pull that off. So yeah, so finally we get this sort of like Zack Snyder's version of this, and I'm sure that black suit will really pop in black and white.
You might be surprised.
It'll really blend in with the darkness of the film. But regardless, I'm sort of I'm in this sort of the gray Superman area with my thoughts on the film. So I definitely don't hate it as much as Slattman does. I definitely don't love it anywhere near what Dog does. But I'm in this medium area where I actually enjoyed it. And this is probably the only Zack Snyder DC movie that I wouldn't mind going back and watching, or at least watching parts of it, because I think some of the action scenes really work for me, especially when they're working together as a team. Although, and I know I went off on the whole 4:3 aspect ratio earlier, which I'm sure some people will get on me about. I don't really care, but my issue with that is, like, if this is your vision and like the very end, like when you have that all of them lined up, because of the square ratio, the way they shoot it, like, as you know, the Flash Barry, he's like looking at people, and because it's so tight, you don't get to see the other people's reactions to what he's doing. And to me, that feels like a pan and scan version, like you'd see an old school VHS. And that annoyed me. It actually sucked the epicness of that. That should have been the epic part. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Where they had to edit all these different reactions as opposed to showing more on the screen. And I think that, to me, that's not that defeats the purpose of what you're doing there. So, so things like that are a little bit I think somebody had reviewed it on Twitter or something, had said that, like, this feels like the final visual effects cut that didn't cut down or edit down into like a proper thing. And I think this would have worked better as an actual series. It would have been interesting if he'd done all these different segments, and he could have even expanded some parts of it, some parts of these little chapters or whatever, and made a little series out of it, as opposed to it being chapters. But yeah, I think it does get kind of bogged down in Zack Snyder's vision, his visuals, his style, to where he's just going full tilt, full blast. And you know, and I think because he doesn't have he's given the gas pedal, but not many brakes. And I think that basically spells out this film. You know, he goes as long as he wants to with scenes. You know, he gets to expand things, which helps things like the Cyborg arc. One of my favorite arcs is probably the Flash arc. For anything, this makes me very excited for the Flash movie, because I think the special effects around his character and the things he can do, I think it's going to be really interesting how the guy who directed it is directing the Flash movie. It'll be interesting to see how we carry that over, and we'll get to see Ben Affleck again as Batman.
And a few others.
Yeah, a few others. So yeah, I enjoyed it. You know, I don't hate it. It's just very frustrating in certain parts where it feels like it's for the sake of just showing stuff as opposed to, you know, just being able to do whatever you want. If I were to give it a rating, I'll give it a 3.25.
Oh, nice.
I mean, I enjoyed it. Like I said, if this were like the Irishman or some of these other 4-hour extravaganzas, I just don't have the attention span for it. But this actually kept my attention span, even if my attention span involved my eyes rolling into the back of my head because there's a slow motion scene that's like 50 minutes long.
Where you get to see the sesame seeds fall off a bun.
Yeah. It's like, so yeah. As for favorite scene, I won't say the hot dog scene. Or should I? Although my favorite TikTok is where somebody says that was the best way to explain bisexuality is him trying to save the girl, and he's like, ooh, you know, hot dog. But as for my favorite scene, I will say the Flash's scene at the very end.
Nice.
Where he's you know, he's having to fulfill that power that he's always said he wasn't going to do to help save the others. And I love that. I love the whole visuals around that. You know, even the way he like
swim runs,
the way he swim runs.
That's one of those scenes where the slow motion was really effective. And if they had done less slow motion, it would have been even more impactful. And
I think just, you know, in the same way that people couldn't figure out like how you could create Ant-Man and do his powers, Flash is the same way, because you're having to, I mean, when you're having to delve into the slow motion thing, except for when he's saving hot dogs from a hot dog vendor. But, you know, when that whole thing of how he interacts and he's having to turn back time and stuff and basically do what Superman did in one of the earlier films going around the earth. And I think the way they work those visuals, everything from the lightning to everything, I think works really well. And I love that creation. So, and I'm glad that's the one thing I'm glad that Zack Snyder brought to this universe is the realization of creating a Flash that wasn't like a guy in his red underwear like the TV show was.
No.
Which I still enjoyed. But anyway, I'll shut up now.
All right, I'll keep it quick. I love this movie. I as much as I dislike the theatrical version, I love this one. Is it overlong? Yes. Is it indulgent? Absolutely. It suffers from both of those. It and keeps it from being, a huge success in my mind. I like it as much as I do, mostly because there is a film to compare it to and to see and understand. And there's some background thing going on. Let me see if I can figure out what that is. All right, there it is. Let's see if I can capture my thoughts. So you basically, I don't know. It's knowing what's in this film and was exercised from the other film is what is part of what makes me appreciate this more. And that is going to be an experience that's unlike any other. It's unique to this particular film. I mean, the only other thing that I can think of that's even anywhere clear near this is what they did with Exorcist. There was an Exorcist movie where we had two directors direct the same movie, and we ended up getting both, and neither was any good. I don't know if anybody remembers that back about 10, 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago now. But only because of the similarities with two directors and having a similar story. What's interesting is that this story is the same story, and it's not the same story all at the same time, and it's really interesting. And the overuse of slow motion and self-indulgence aside, this really is it's schooling for a lot of filmmakers. I don't know if Christopher will agree with me or not, and he can do that offline because we don't need another hour. But but you can see that what choices, by comparing the two, you see what choices do to a film, right? What to include, what not to include, what character beats matter, which don't. Where do you keep going? Where do you stop? Where do uses of color, uses of music, uses of ratio, which is another thing that I think keeps this movie from being a 5 in any way. Is I am also not a fan of the ratio. It just doesn't make sense, especially like Christopher G. Moore said, in the format in which it's being presented, and they knew it was being presented this way. It just, even if it was going to be presented this way in theatrically on IMAX, you still have a version that had the right ratio. It just doesn't make sense. I eventually got used to it and it didn't matter, but I still don't like that decision. I like everything else. I love, I even the characters that I didn't like in the first one. I didn't really like Cyborg. Really like Cyborg now. The Cyborg character is totally justified in this version. I would say the Flash is as well. I was not a real huge fan of just funny Flash, and here he has a lot more weight to him. He's still funny, has a lot more weight to him. And as much as I liked funny Aquaman in the theatrical version, I think that was actually a disservice, and I didn't know it because he's much better in this film. A lot of water splashing on him, really strange. But regardless, so I'm going to keep it to the quick. I love this movie. I'm going to give it a 4. I feel like I want to give it more, but for the reasons I just gave, I can't. And my favorite scene, and I'm going to catch a lot of crap, and a lot of crap that I could catch would be another hour. But I love the Batman Joker scene. I love that whole nightmare. Yeah, see, there he is. I am the only person I know that likes Jared Leto's version of the Joker. I really when they started.
I like this version of Jared Leto as the Joker.
This makes me very happy. This is the version I think. Yes, I will agree with you. This is the better version than the version we saw in the Suicide Squad. But this is in my mind, in where I like to live in my own little fantasy world watching movies. This is the version they wanted in that, but it got recut and they did, and very similar to what happened to Justice League, and that version didn't make it. There are a lot of scenes that didn't make it into that movie, but I feel like this is the way it was intended. The the whole scene and dialogue between the two of them is just, I really, really enjoyed. I enjoyed, the fact it just says so much that, the weight of what happens, you've got to, your enemies are now your teammates because the threat is so much larger. And that, because even Deathstroke is with them, but Deathstroke historically is kind of the guy that would flip anytime he needed to, anytime it served him. Right. So that it's not that big of a surprise. And but anyway, the scene between them, the dialogue, the whole "you almost had me" thing, and that's not very careful. It just made me really want to see the movie that they teased at times with the Batman and the Joker happen. This version of the Batman and Joker, and I fear, well, I don't think we'll ever see it now. Although they're talking, well, it depends on the site. You go to some of these sites and they'll rumor anything. But man, I could dial into some of those rumors. Anyway, I know that's not going to be a very popular selection of favorite scene, but I really, really enjoyed that for a lot of reasons.
Well, they supposedly have a different, some of the other dialogue stuff in the black and white version that's coming out.
Oh, okay. Maybe I will watch it.
Because there's a scene that I think there's a line of dialogue he says in the trailer that's not in this version. So maybe that'll be a reason for you to watch that and trying to strain your eyes, trying to see what's happening on the screen.
Yeah, at least the last 10 minutes of it, right? So,
just fast forward to the end.
Man, I really hope that in the black and white version, the very end, there's color in Superman's red eyes as he floats down as he's evil Superman. That would be a good use of black
like a
and white,
Schindler's List type
Mm-hmm.
piece of red.
Yeah.
I can't wait for the Fisher Price hand crank movie viewer version. That's that. A lot of people aren't gonna get that reference because it's a very old toy. But
I'm gonna send you the Super 8 version, and you'll just be happy.
Oh, the Super 8, yeah.
It'll be just one little reel.
Really?
Just be Wonder Woman going.
I can't wait. I can't wait for the viewfinder version where every little wheel is another frame of a 5-minute long slow motion.
All right, I think we're all losing it here. We are officially off the rails. All right, if you've listened to this, thank you all so much for spending this much time with us. We greatly appreciate it. And if you want a hot dog, email Christopher at oh gross. Do you know where that hot dog's been?
My fridge.
There's somewhere I could go with that, but I'm not touching it. I'm not touching your wiener.
Let's end this.
All right, Slattman, Christopher, thank you so much for joining me. Let's say goodnight.
Good night.
Good night.